Hello everyone and welcome to the Eternal Card Breakdown. My name is Myriad, and today we are going to be looking at Exodus, the new promo card for Wednesday, the 25th of May. It is pretty exciting to be looking at some new cards in Unleashed, especially since I feel like Unleashed is definitely looking for a couple of new pieces of tech. Red cards in particular do need some interesting things, and Praxis is getting something very, very cool here in the form of an inscribe hybrid card with +1/+1 charge and endurance on all of your units as a spell effect. So pay 3, 1 red, 1 yellow, get +1/+1 charge and endurance. So this is pretty interesting because it's one of the only, I think it is the only hybrid inscribe card, which means that you can play it as a depleted power of either fire or time, which currently, there aren't really any cards that do this, but effectively what this does is that it makes it, in addition to its standard spell effect, work as a seek power for Praxis color specifically. So you basically just get to play a depleted power of whatever color you like. You get to fix your power to help you set up for stuff like the new Heart of the Vault, the 4-cost 1/1 that attacks multiple times, or anything with very, very deep timer fire requirements, as well as just in general, like setting up good hybrid color decks in 3 colors or 4 colors gets a lot easier when you have cards like this that are both count as gas, but also count as ways to fix power. So one of the things about these types of cards is that they're going to be pretty inherently strong in whatever format they're in, just due to their ability to function as like seek power, but also you can use it as something else. And that is usually like pretty worth the loss in deck thinning that you get from like standard seek power type effects, where you say like pull a power out of your deck and get like slightly more consistent draws as a result. But like I would say that like generally it's just better if your card already does something off the bat and you can get something very, very good off of it. So like that alone like does actually increase the power level of Exodus enough that like I think it's worth taking a pretty strong look at in any Praxis lists that you might be running. In Throne, this might actually be pretty reasonable due to that inscribe. Like, there aren't that many ways to give units charge. Most of them do cost, like, fairly little in comparison to Exodus, but it is also just a +1/+1 bonus and gives units endurance, which can really save your bacon against certain blue decks and certain other types of strategies that might just basically mess up some of your units otherwise. Having endurance on your big red and yellow units tends to give you a much more stable board, which can be really, really solid on that front. In Expedition, this card is like clearly very powerful. I think that in most situations you are just going to be like really looking for something that both gives you that flexibility and the ability to do like a massive power boost of any kind like this. So if you are playing like just a unit at a time and the goal is like, oh, eventually I'll play a 2-drop and then I'll give it an Exodus and it'll be fine, that's like not too bad. I think that with Unleash cards, you can definitely get a lot better than that due to the fact that you are now giving a bunch of different bonuses to a bunch of different Unleash cards, as well as giving them new skills in preparation for the next time that you bounce them and play them again. A Grumbo's Platoon with charge and endurance is pretty disgusting, particularly when that card's very, very heavy on stats. So you can actually get some like really good benefits off of that. But other things that I think this card really belongs in is anything where you are playing a massive amount of units in the same space and the same time. A particular example that we've already been using is the 7-cost 7/7, where when you sacrifice a relic, you get to generate 7 more power. And it's quite reasonable that after playing 3 or 4 of those cards, you might skip the 5th just to play an Exodus and give all of those cards +1/+1 and endurance, because having charge on 4 8/8s is kind of a big deal, and if they have Overwhelm already and they're getting endurance they can block as well, that tends to just completely take control of the board in a way that's really, really satisfying. So Exodus is just really performing pretty well on all different aspects. I do think that it is a fairly inefficient card for what it is doing. It is not a card where you're like, oh yes, I'm so happy that I get to play this card specifically in every deck that I'm playing, because +1/+1 charge and endurance for every unit is going to be so strong. I think it is something where you play it if you have the turn off and you have a bunch of power in your hand, but more likely you're actually using this for the inscribe more often than not. And then like later in the game at 10, at like a turn where you don't have anything, but you have a lot of stuff on board, then you can play this card to get like a pretty decent like small bonus, and that can be quite worth it. Even if you're just using this to give 1 unit +1/+1 in endurance, that can really help out against any deck that's running Tools of Oppression, any deck that is playing like just generally green because there is an awful lot of stun in green, and any deck that's playing a large amount of blue, like Frostpack Sprites, Ice Sprites, anything where you've got like extra amounts of like flash freezy effects kind of going off. This can really preserve that unit while also allowing you to, again, use it as a blocker later on, because it's going to be a little bit bigger and a little bit more powerful. But, I mean, I think just notably, like, having this card in conjunction with Praxis's already excellent Arcanum's True Heart is, like, generally a decent recipe for early expedition success. If you want to just like grind your way out of bronze or silver, this is something where you can actually build a pretty simple deck that uses Arcanum's True Heart and a couple of other things and demands that your opponent have silences, because you are going to be pretty consistently playing a 4-drop with your Praxis Tomes, your Seats of Impulse. Is it Impulse? I'm pretty sure it's Impulse. And your Exoduses, because you just very frequently get the actual influence that you need to play your Arcanum's True Hearts on 4. And when you're playing Arcanum's True Heart on 4, that card will just take over the game if it is not answered. And it is frequently very, very difficult to answer for decks that do not have access to silence. A lot of the decks that do have access to silence also might be a little bit more messed up by cards getting sudden endurance triggers. So there's a lot of like different ways that this card can sort of be used to give you that extra bit of toolkittery. So yeah, Exodus is not a terribly exciting card, except in situations where you are just completely blowing up the board and then giving everything charge at the same time, which is always really fun at like 10. But most of the time, it's just like a solid little early to mid-range card whose main advantage is that it is incredibly good at fixing your power. If we see more hybrid cards like this, take note of them, because they are going to be pretty strong in Expedition metas in particular, and in general should just be like a really, really good implementation of that sort of like Seek Power archetype, where you can just use this to add consistency to your deck while also adding more gas, and that's always an exciting thing to do. That's pretty much it for this card breakdown. Thanks so much for watching, and you can tune in for some more very, very soon. We'll be up with some brews, probably focused around Exodus very shortly. Already got something in the pipes, so we'll be showing that off in a little bit. And cheers to the YouTube folks. Thank you for watching.